Welcome to the February 18th County Commission meeting. And for all those that are capable, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bobby, call roll.
Commissioner Neil Younger.
Present.
Chair Michael Burgess.
Here.
Commissioner Nathan Liker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Order of business, any changes? I don't think we have any changes. We'll go through it as it's presented. Prior minutes. Everybody look through,
Yeah.
look fine.
Look good.
Look good.
Okay, and the consent agenda.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second on the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes 3-0. Light crowd issues from persons not on the order of the agenda. Sheriff Brown?
Scott Brown, Ellis County Sheriff. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Commissioner Younger asked that I come up and speak. He was approached by someone about my officers, my deputies, sitting along the side of the road and running radar in the county, and whether it's legal or not. And just so the public is aware, it is legal for my guys to be blacked out with no lights on, running radar on 183, on I-70, any county road, as long as they're not causing a hazard for the public to travel along. So the thought process that is illegal and is not permittable is incorrect, and he just wanted me to bring that to the community and let him know that. And my guys do that. They run radar blacked out along roads that are very active. If we sit there with our headlights on, well, people slow down, and so we want to encourage them to slow down, but sometimes we have to take action. So just to let you know.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
You bet.
Any additional speakers this morning? Moving on, monthly department reports. Any comments from the commission?
No?
I'd like to make note that EMS has had an uptick about 10%, it appears. So, and the sheriff with his jail is running steady on the population currently. So we have a few that are still out of county, but for various reasons.
With that being said, also, as active as our, not active, but I'm going to say the response time for our fire is just, it's always amazed me, you know, within 10 minutes in the county. We got some good individuals on there, so we ought to be proud of that.
Thank you to the departments for their reports to us. Moving on, Ellis County Historical Society update. This is Amanda Rupp, Director.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Today, I brought with me just a couple highlights from last year, but I wanted to share with you our 2025 goals that were setting out this year that we presented to the city last week, but pass these around. And Darren, did that slideshow get pulled up? You're working on it? Oh, good, okay. I'll get on to something else then, and then I did have some pictures to show you just because the Brick by Brick campaign is finished. The restoration on the red brick building down the street is completely done, and we are moving on to designing displays and going to put them up this coming year and hopefully have permanent displays up this time next year. So in that annual report, or that basically just highlights from last year, I just wanted to point out two things I'd like to brag about, I guess. Last year, I think our volunteer hours sat right around 1,300 volunteer hours, and of course, I couldn't do any of this without those volunteers, and we have over 1,500. I stopped counting because I didn't have accurate numbers coming in from everybody, but it was well over 1,500 volunteer hours for the last year. And then I did go ahead and highlight some of the general operations budgets numbers, just for your information. And the only reason that we were able to run such a tight general operating budget last year is because of those individuals that help us. We had predicted a 22, or I can't remember, $28,000 deficit for the year, and we came in, we pinched pennies and had to cut a couple hours, but we came in with only a $5,000 deficit at the end of the year. So we're doing our part to run with that, and that's not up yet, so I will move on to my 2025 goals. We obviously will be running our third annual trivia night. If we still have some teams open, so if any of you guys want to be the smartest people in Ellis County, I mean, I'm sure commissioners are like second of the smartest people in Ellis County, but the current title holders are Herman Physical Therapy, that group, and so we've already got a lot of teams coming back. It's a fun evening. If you'd like to sign up, I have paperwork here today also. We will be bringing back our Pioneer Day again. Last year, we served about between 150 and 180 third grade students throughout the county, and that will be in May. And then this summer, as I mentioned, our building is finished. It's gorgeous and glorious, but we haven't had time to put up all the displays that we used to have in there, and we're going to revamp those. And so this summer, to be open during tourist season, we are going to host a traveling exhibit from the museum out of Salina, the Smoky Hill Museum, and that is a display called A Place to Call Home, and it is a covered wagon and life on the prairie. I think it's 3/4 size. It's not actual size, but it's large, and it fits in that gallery space. So that will be up June through September, and again, just like years prior, we are going to have that open free to the public. No cost to anyone. Last year, we were able to participate in the Sunflower Summer Program through the Kansas Department of Tourism and Commerce, and this year I don't think they'll be running that, but we're going to continue to do that. I'd still like to, the board's goal is to have the facility in Hayes free to the public. We wanted a multi-use facility that has space for our permanent displays, space for rotating displays, and a space for a commons area that we can use as for presentations and programming, and be able to participate in things that happen downtown. The facility over in Victoria, however, when we get that open in a few years, that will be a tourist destination that will be an income generator for us. That will, in our early thoughts and calculations, that we can run the utilities and the facilities on hopefully what we can bring in, generate an income from tourists. They get a lot of, I think it was 18,000 tourists through the Basilica, and if we can pull half of them, it should make a good difference. So back to our 2025 goals. This will be the last year that we're kind of open part-time because we don't have the full museum open, but behind the scenes, we will still be doing a lot of things. That storage unit over in Victoria is ready to go, and we've been putting things in it clean, and artifacts up in their spot, and things, I get a smile, things that are like go together, and it's amazing, and it's beautiful, and if I want to find something, I can go find it. We're inventorying that and putting that in our cataloging system. We were going to plan on doing it this spring, but we're looking at some other grants for textiles, and so we are moving our sorting and processing our textiles, which is probably would take up this room of wedding dresses and outfits and quilts that everybody loves. We're going to do that in the fall, and so if anybody knows anyone that likes to sew, we will be taking lots of volunteers for that process in the fall. Let's see. We will also be working, I know that when I first came to the commission here, we didn't have much of a plan, and we set out and put a 3-year plan together, and we have finished that last year. So we are going to start our new 5-year strategic plan. So we'll be doing that behind the scenes. And then 2 special projects that we'll be working on this year. One is being finished up. We'll finish up here this spring, early spring. We are collecting stories from Vietnam vets in the area and their families that we'll be recording for our archives and sending copies to the State Historical Society, a project through Humanities Kansas. If you know anybody that would be willing to share their story, it's a recorded interview, and then we transcribe the interview and keep those stories on in our archives. And then the other one is another Humanities Kansas opportunity. We applied to get a Smithsonian exhibit, part-time, a traveling exhibit. We did not get to host the site, but we got what's called a partner site, and they are giving us a little programming money to present our own version of this traveling exhibit that they have. It's called The Americans, or excuse me, it's called Americans, and it's about the way Native American imagery has permeated our culture. And we will be doing a retrospective and history on the Hayes High School mascot and how it's changed over the years, and how we have changed from using the headdress imagery to the new logo. And so that should be up at the end of the year. So, and then before I forget, before I get into the wonderful pictures to show you, I did want to highlight a few things about the Victoria site, since it's not as important maybe to the city of Hayes as it is here. We will be working on that. As I said, the second floor, our storage unit, is completely completed. We'll start working on the lower level as we get funds in. We have raised roughly $270,000 in private donations from individuals so far without getting any grants. And out of that 270, about $90,000 has come from people outside of Ellis County. There are 19 other states, or excuse me, 19 other counties in Kansas that have donated to this project, and 15 other states that have donated. And these come from people that want to see this project. Obviously, family members of descendants from this area. There's other farmers and oil industry businesses that want to see those exhibits up and this cultural center happen. So we're pretty proud of that. And like we've done with all of our other projects, we're going to use that money locally, local vendors, and piece it out as we can, be our own contractor, I guess, as much as we can. So then the other thing is, I will be applying for our first grant since I applied for the Sprint grant. Dang Sprint grant. Anyway, for the Victoria site, and I would love to have the county commission support in a letter of support as I apply for that. It will be due at the April 1st, I believe. And it's a Kansas tourism grant. It's for a new attraction facility, and it's up to $100,000 in award. So if I could, would love to get a letter of support from you guys. And then also I'll touch on that a little bit in the slideshow, but I'm also working on a grant. We've done a lot of local foundations and state funded money, but this is a private grant. It's the T-Mobile Hometown Grant, and I'll be applying for that for some of our exhibits, cabinetry and production that we'll be putting into this Hayes building, and would be lovely to have another letter of support for that one as well. They like to see that you guys are all standing behind us, obviously. So, but without further ado, I just wanted to show you a little bit of highlights from the Brick by Brick campaign. In 2016, when I got the keys and started looking around the space, I found quite a lot of different plans that they had gone through previously, and they had wanted to build a building on the west lot. They were going to buy a different building. They were going to take down that building completely and build a $17 million complex, et cetera, et cetera. The one that was the most feasible was a study from Benmore Studios done in 2016, and they were, the cost estimates at that time were $1.6 million. It did not include new gallery space. It did not include a new HVAC system. It was a renovated system. It did not include newly renovated office space or an elevator. It did include ADA restroom and ADA entrance. It had roof repair at the time, and historic window repair, and the brick and mortar repair. And then if you go to the next one, we did it post-pandemic prices for $1.1 million. It took us 3 years, and the roof was already done, so we didn't have to do that. That was done in 2019, I believe. And so we did the brick and mortar repair, the ADA entrance, the restroom. We got newly renovated space, newly renovated gallery, and we also got a brand new HVAC system and an elevator. And we did it for $500,000 less than they had predicted in 2016. So that is our big wow movement. So anyway, but these are some of the things that we've done. Obviously, the exterior repair was meant for the entire building. This is one of the worst spots there on that limestone building. If you go next, we got new space that can be used as office space and larger gathering space. Our back area was a workspace, a storage space, a break room, not really appropriate for anything altogether. But now it is a nice, workable space, clean. Obviously, we've talked about this before, but free of mold, and we can start, doing work in there. So we also worked on, I don't remember what's next here. There was a lot of plaster repair. This is the main front entrance of the basement. And then if you go next, this is the south entrance. That was part of the problem from the Benmore study, was obviously the drainage from the building. There was a large mound back there that basically everything just sat there. It was trying to run off, but it didn't. So obviously our ADA entrance helped with that. And then back to plaster repair. There was a lot from moisture getting in through the brick and mortar that we did a lot of plaster repair. There was areas on the next slide that were beyond our beyond our scope. We could have done it, but it would have cost a heck of a lot of money. So we just took it down and left the beautiful brick that I'm sure all of you guys think is really beautiful, but the State Historic Society says, no, put that plaster back up. Anyway, and then we'll go on to the next one. The big one was obviously the HVAC system, and it was, I think, costing us $8,000 a year in maintenance to make sure those boilers were running or something was going wrong. One of the boilers was completely down, which was not within code. We were supposed to have a backup, I guess, but now it's so nice and clean in there, you can eat in there. There's no oil on the floor, and it looks like a brand new machine shop. So then, of course, there's our elevator space. Over there on the left is where it comes down into our archives room, and then it does enter into the main gallery just in the corner off to the left of the stage. So it is not a commercial unit, a traditional boxed-in unit. It's a large private in-home use one, and it's can hold up to, I can't remember how much, 800 pounds. It can hold up a motorized wheelchair. So, and then we also did wood. The floors refinishing and all the woodwork in there is gorgeous, and we just touched that up a little bit, but the floors are spectacular. There's some more woodwork, the original woodwork. It's all mission style from the 1920s. So, and then of course our ADA restroom over there on the left, or in the middle, excuse me. It was a small little one stall, two stalls. None of them were ADA accessible. So now we've got a large family bathroom. So, and then out of one of the back rooms, we made an employee break room, so they're not eating where the artifacts are, or where we're cleaning artifacts, or it's novel ideas. So, and then of course, these are the main gallery space. Over there on the left is how the museum was partitioned out prior with what they could do, which was great. The space was used as a museum. What we want to do as a board is, now that we've spent all this money to restore the building, is that building itself is an exhibit. And so as you come in, we want the grandeur of the room to be an exhibit. There will be permanent displays along the horseshoe or around the edge, the perimeter, and up on the balcony. Through the center will be movable displays that can be moved out of the way. And we also took it back to the curved front. You can see a little bit of here of the stage or altar. What would have been the altar? Sometime before 1950, I have a picture from like 53, I think, they cut it off. And it mimics the curve of the balcony, which is gorgeous, and I think you can see that on the next slide. So that took a little bit of extra money in our budget because we had forgotten about that part of it. So when we went back to put that on this fall, we had to postpone the last little piece of this building. The structural part is done, but to put in the fire alarm system will be the last chunk of $25,000, and all the money that we had raised, we've spent. But at our annual meeting, Mr. Darrell Seibel stood up and said, I'll pledge $5,000 to anybody that can match it, get you started, so that we can get that system up and in there before the summer tourist season. So we're pretty proud of all of the work, and hopefully the citizens of Ellis County and Hayes are proud of it, and it can be something that is useful for everybody, and it's not just a static building with exhibits that everybody goes in once a year, or if their family comes back, or they get to do their grade school tour once and never see it again. So thank you for all your support. You guys have any questions?
Just comment, when you said bragging, you got bragging because you should have had a before picture when I was in there with that room that you had redone with the beautiful oak flooring. That is just tremendous. And I was at your annual meeting and how people were pledging funding. And now that you tell me that from other surrounding counties, that is, you're outreaching and
Yeah.
you done what you said a couple of years ago. So very good.
Thank you.
I applaud the hard work, and I'm glad the community has done the outreach and put in the groundwork, and it's not top down. It's bottom up, and it should stand a lot longer that way. So thank you.
Hopefully. Thank you. Well, thank you, commissioners.
Fantastic work. I don't think we'll have a problem with letters of support, so
Wonderful.
Yeah.
come
I'll
back
get
and
with
see
Darren
us
on that.
again, and
So.
we'll help you out as much further as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda, High Plains Mental Health Update. Here an update on High Plains Mental Health from Mr. Craig Poe, and James Gerstner's here as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for having me.
Morning.
I sent out some handouts today, but I did want to give a general update before I go into that. Been here for a little over a year. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. Other than I see -5 on Darren's computer as I was watching that. It's about the only complaint I got today, I guess. We are really moving forward with a lot of different things. If you haven't paid attention to where High Plains is going, we've made a lot of adjustments and changes, and a lot of that started before I came. The community mental health system in Kansas has moved through a transition to be certified community behavioral health centers, or CCBHCs, and that has allowed us to have more adequate funding through Medicaid to provide at our cost to do business instead of a fee-for-service, which was very difficult to do when they'd pay you less than it cost you to provide the service for a lot of things that we do. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it does allow us to have a marketable wage for our staff and begin to really increase the number of people we have working for us that can provide more services. And one of those expansions that we made, started talking about it shortly after I got here, was adding a system that is a little bit on edge. To give you a little bit of history, just as recent as 6 years ago, in a university setting, they were talking about transcranial magnetic stimulation as a absolute last resort for treatment for depression. And it is a medical device that looks a lot like a dental chair, but has a wand, so to speak, up near the head that puts magnetic stimulation into the brain. Just 6 years later, it is fully FDA approved without any drug trial losses for adolescents at 15 and 18 and above. They're still requiring 2 drug trials. So if somebody's been on an antidepressant and it failed to work more than twice, then they likely qualify, and all insurances are paying for it. Knowing this and coming in with a great medical director, Dr. Romerine, with our center, we spent the time to research it and put a transcranial magnetic stimulation machine in our office here in Hayes, and have been treating patients since August 8th. We have about 15 graduates. Actually, we're probably closer to 20 now because the numbers keep moving quite quickly from the program, and it is literally changing people's lives. We have individuals that will come in and be no longer depressed for the first time in 15 to 20 years. They're coming in to see us and getting a treatment that is non-invasive, has basically no side effects, some mild irritation occasionally when they first get started, and no long-term side effects that we're known of. And we're talking about tens of thousands of people that have been treated with this machine across the country. We went with a product called NeuroStar because of the long life of their product and how much investment they have into making sure it works. We have individuals, some of you may have read in the Hayes Post, one of our individuals shared his story, but individuals that are going from the max score with a PHQ-9, which if you're not familiar with the term, this is the same depression screening you get if you go to the doctor, and they ask you a few questions about whether or not you're in a good state of mind. There's individuals that will go from a 27, which would be the highest score on that scale, severely depressed, to a 2. No depression at all. They are no longer clinically diagnosed with depression when they reach that scale, I guess is the way I should word it. We are thoroughly impressed with this product. For antidepressant medications, oftentimes the amount of success is going to be roughly 20%. With TMS, the amount of success, meaning you've at least reduced symptoms by 50%, is over 80%. So over 80% of the people that come into our office to be treated for this have at least a 50% reduction in their symptoms for depression. And over 60% of those individuals no longer have depression. And we are continuing to find ways to treat more people the more that we can. Now, it is a commitment of time. An individual will come in and spend about 20 minutes a day for a period of about 7 weeks. But they can go right back to work. So we try to schedule things appropriately to make sure things function. And the changes are potentially not having to be on any more medications, not having any treatment at all. Roughly a third of people throughout the country that have used this machine, since we're new enough, we don't have a year timeline, but roughly a third of people will come back once a year. And not a scientific opinion, but there may be other factors that are leading them back to depression, not necessarily that it's recurring, it's that good life habits and things like that do need to continue to occur to prevent depression. But the machine itself is shocking how much impact we can make, to the point where we are looking at how to secure a second machine, because if you add up 20 minutes a day times 7 weeks, there's only so many people we can treat in a year. And there are a whole lot more people that are actively struggling with depression than the number we can put in the chair for a year. So we will try to add more machines as appropriate and continue to keep you updated on that. But it's a really exciting time for High Plains just with that alone. But we are continuing to add other things as well. So on February 10th, we opened a new entrance. We call it Entrance A, lack of imagination, I suppose. But Entrance A is open in the old VA space on 7th Street. And we put up a new awning and began seeing clients in this new welcome center for all of our services here locally. The intent is to provide a welcoming environment where individuals can come and see our first admissions. So they'll get evaluated for treatment and then get referred out for outpatient therapy or medications or case management, but it would all start within that center. Now, it's all hinged on a larger project that we've been working on that I also provided handouts for you, is trying to incorporate a crisis intervention center within Hayes. Crisis Intervention Center is new legislation that was published last July, and it is the ability for us to open a temporary solution for involuntary inpatient treatment. Previously, we've only been able to take voluntary with the facility that we have at the Schwaller Center. This would allow us to take involuntary clients as well as sobering clients, so a dedicated sobering bed to an individual that meets the qualifications. So instead of an individual only being able to come in and say, I'm a danger to myself or others, and I need some help, we have somebody that can be brought in by law enforcement or a concerned citizen and say, this individual is a danger to themselves or others. Now, of course, our therapist would check out and make sure that that's functional, because I don't want my mother-in-law dropping me off. But we verify that the criteria is met, and we provide the needs for individuals that would likely be sitting in an emergency room or in a jail cell waiting for a state bed at Larned. So the impact of a facility like this would take the weight off of areas that are doing the best they can, but they're not designed to treat people for mental illness. They're designed to protect our safety or treat a medical emergency. And this will provide the actual psychiatric or therapeutic needs that the individual needs
right away. So imagine the impact of somebody that's in mental health crisis going to an emergency room. I don't know about you, but I didn't get de-stressed last time I went to an emergency room. Instead, coming into an environment that's designed to help them, whether it's resetting their medications or just giving them a calming, therapeutic environment to recover from the mental crisis that they're in. This facility, we selected a site after an extensive review of all the different commercial properties in town. We took a grant from KDADS shortly after I got here for $200,000 to explore what this concept would look like. And I believe we spent the money well. We did a survey of the area with the Docking Institute to determine the need, as well as an architectural study and some of that commercial building research, and identified the third floor of the Hadley Center, the third floor east wing, which is where KBC or Canberra used to be with the children's facility. The floor is in a significant need of repair, and we have secured some funding from KDADS to initiate this project, but we do have a remainder of just over $4 million remaining to fundraise for the remaining construction and building concepts. We are actively pursuing funding. We're not asking Ellis County for $4 million. But I did want you guys to be aware of the funding that we are out there trying to find to help secure things that are going to greatly impact the region. This facility will be a 22-bed facility with 2 de-escalation rooms, and it's not in the plans because it becomes difficult to discuss, but the first question I usually get is, what if 22 beds isn't enough? And within the architectural plans, it would take us repositioning some administrative staff, but we have the ability to expand by up to 10 additional beds by just buying some additional furniture. Now, this furniture isn't cheap, but it's much cheaper than reconstruction and adding rooms where there are no rooms. So we've built that into the facility to be able to expand if needed. But based on the Docking Institute numbers, we are looking at a peak capacity of around 15 to 16 beds, and intentionally don't want to have no beds available. Part of that is licensing. We would have to keep a certain number of involuntary beds there for law enforcement to bring individuals in to meet our licensing. But I also don't want to prevent an individual from showing up voluntarily and us having to say we have no rooms at the end. And so the intent would be for the facility to have a flexible number of beds so that we don't ever reach full capacity. I won't read the whole summary that I've sent to you, but I do want to skip to the statement of need, which would be page 2, and I'll just highlight that section. Over the past decade, mental illness and substance use issues have escalated into a growing crisis that demands immediate attention. Northwest Kansas has one of the highest suicide rates in the state, yet there are no adult psychiatric hospitals in the region. As a result, individuals in urgent need of care are often sent to the emergency rooms or the jails. These facilities are designed for medical emergencies and public safety, not for mental health treatment. Without the right expertise or environment, these settings often fail to provide the care needed, leaving the individuals vulnerable or their conditions worsening. Now imagine a loved one reaching out in their darkest moment, only to be told that no help is available. Instead of receiving specialized care, they're placed in an emergency room focused on physical injuries or confined in a jail cell meant for criminal detention, isolated without access to psychiatric support that they desperately need. Those struggling with substance use face even greater risks, as safe detoxification units are non-existent. This is a harsh reality for our community. In moments when immediate intervention can mean the difference between recovery and tragedy, the current system is not equipped to respond. These people are in crisis. They're not just waiting. They're suffering the longer we have them wait. We need to find something to do to provide that solution, and I believe the CIC is that solution. We've researched the type of rooms, the layout of the facility. We've built all the groundwork for it. We just need to raise the additional funds, and we know that this will have a direct impact on the area. I do want to switch to page 5.
and talk a little bit about the economic impact, because I could spend all day, and I think everybody in the room would certainly understand the great need for mental health care and the amazing services that we can provide if we fast forward to having this facility. But I don't want to overlook the fact that having a crisis intervention center in Hayes will greatly positively impact the economy. This will raise over 50 jobs for the area, whether it's college graduates that were retained to the area or whether it's individuals that we attract to come in and work in a psychiatric facility. 50 new jobs means well over $4 million in income added to this economy. The 50 jobs taking at a healthcare rate would be 1.72 as a factor, which creates roughly 86 jobs. And I'm not the statistician to go into all the details, but if you have questions, I'll do the best I can to answer. But those additional jobs are created by an additional 50 people buying things, an additional 50 people working within the economy and adding to this economy here. That financial impact to the region is often not talked about when we talk about mental health crises, and I felt like it was something to really highlight for this group and make sure that you're aware of what we're trying to put together. The last page just talks about where we're at, but I want to stress how much every single gift will matter. It doesn't matter whether it's $5 or $500,000. We will have an impact with that money, and it will literally save someone's life. Now, I do have an additional funding request that is not something that we would have done in historic times with Ellis County or any of our other counties, and that's the individual sheet that I handed out to you. Our Crisis Intervention Center is designed to help people when they can't help themselves. And we're all familiar with the mental health screening process. Individuals are screened to see if they qualify to go to a state hospital. And the best way we could find any type of value of how many people would individually be seeking refuge within the CIC is measure the number of screens done in each county. And that's what this data is from the previous year. Coincidentally, our institute report showed that we would have well over 500 and upwards of 700 individuals seen in the unit on an annual basis. And then when we looked back at our own numbers, separate from the Docking Institute, we did a total of 705 screenings in 2024. These screenings are measuring people to see if they are mentally unstable or have other criteria that they meet that would direct them to a state hospital. This is when they end up waiting in a jail cell or in the emergency room at the hospital to go to that state hospital. With a facility right here in Hayes, they could come directly to the facility instead. And so within that 2024 number, Ellis County, we had 224 adult screens. So it'd be very likely that we would see over 200 people that reside in Ellis County that seek services in the CIC next year. So we found a $200,000 funding request to help fund the CIC and help with ongoing operations, which would be we're planning to open in November, so this would be for mostly the year of 26, but we would put this request out there for that year due to the amount of increased operational funding that we would need, and we'll do that separate from our regular county funding. Certainly understand it's a new process and open for questions, and you're the first ones to see it. But wanted to bring it to you and let you know kind of what we're proposing and see if there's any thoughts on how we can adjust. But the facility itself will greatly reduce costs that are also incurred within the county because these individuals are served in this unit instead. And I think it will be a lot more positive experience for those individuals. So with that, I'll leave it open for questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I do have a couple with the CIC. Will that be set up on like a 24-hour?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It'll be 24 hours available. And I guess I didn't talk about it, but the Welcome Center on the first floor that we opened,
Okay.
we're going to put a private elevator on the back of the building that goes directly up to the new unit. And that will allow a private drop-off for law enforcement, so that if mom or dad are bringing in their 13-year-old child to start therapy services, they're not sitting in a lobby while someone's coming through in handcuffs and kicking and screaming through the process, because we do serve all of those same individuals. I just feel like the entrance should be a little different for them, so.
So also, with adding 50 or more jobs to our community, will this suffice as the building, or will this grow in the future, hopefully?
It is possible that it would grow. My thoughts on this is we would be taking some of the first steps to be a psychiatric hub for Western Kansas.
Okay.
We provide a facility like this, and we're going to attract additional like businesses, if not expand our own facilities and ways to treat people. This would be the first step in creating that type of care and access that we just don't have anywhere near here right now.
Okay. And then one other question with the machine or device that you put on the individual's head. Is there special training that goes with it? Do you get certified in this? How is that all working?
So we rely on NeuroStar to train our individuals. There is a bit of training involved. It does not require a medical license to do ongoing treatment, but we made the decision to use LPNs to provide the ongoing treatment, and our psychiatrist does what they call the mapping. So they find the right spot on each individual's head to make sure that we're directing the magnetic charges into the right place.
Okay. And the most important thing you said was to save lives, if we can get them in there before, and hopefully that will take some load off of our jail, and very good plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll applaud kind of the change of direction that we've seen over the past year, with the new plans in place, expansions. I do know that out here in Western Kansas, we're behind. And Kansas in general is very behind on the mental health side. So I applaud the efforts to take steps and big steps going forward.
Thank you.
A lot to process here, for sure. So with the $4 million that needs to be secured, but you're starting construction this year. So how are you starting construction without securing the funding?
So KDAD's provided us $1.38 million to initiate construction, and we also have what's called our PPS rate through the Medicaid funding I spoke about, which will begin the higher amount of funding as if we were open from the beginning of this year. So both of those will help us fund the project, as well as knowing that if we are not able to fund the entire construction project, we will have to identify additional things for KDADs to help us out with, or additional foundations. But we found enough funding to get through the state's fiscal year, and they have an additional RFA that they're calling it to open up for funding for crisis. We feel confident from the conversations that we've had with foundations and KDADs that we will secure the amount of funding to move forward. Part of it becomes we will provide this much money as long as you finish it before the end of the year. And so they've put us on a timeline that we needed to do. But we've been fortunate with the partners that we have in town. Dave Van Dorn with the Hadley Center, as well as commercial builders, are involved in this project. And they are all well aware of the timeline that we're under and the crunch that we're having, and have been very accommodating to make sure that that functions. As far as the ongoing operating cost, we do have funding that we will request from KDADs, and the $200,000 that we have on the sheet that's then divvied up by the number of screens, which would be an additional $72,609 that we would send as an official request to Ellis County, is about 4% of the annual operating budget of the CIC. So it's consistent with the operating costs that we ask for all the other services that we provide. So that's kind of how we landed on that number, was trying to figure out what the annual operating is and know that it's going to have an impact on each county. Because we're not just serving Ellis County, so all the other counties will get a similar request based on the number of screens that we provide for them as well.
So that's, because the request that you're kind of have, this would be for our 2026 budget, not for an addition to this year's.
Correct.
2025, okay.
Yeah.
and again, just for anybody listening and taxpayers and everybody else, that would be, you come for a request annually for operating and those kind of things, but this would be in addition to that request, correct?
It would. We felt like it was good to separate the two because it is, even under state licensing, two separate facilities. We will manage and run both of them, but it's not just another department. It's a full facility that we would treat as its own entity.
Okay. Would that be going beyond 2026, would that be then a recurring request along with that as well?
It would be, yeah. Yeah, we will continue to explore any avenues to continue to fund all the great work that we're trying to do, but yeah, we hope that we'll find support with that as well.
What conversations have you had with, and you touched on it here a little bit, with our sheriff's department and with Hayes Med in particular, but our other medical facilities in town? What conversations have you had with them as far as the need for this in our community, and is there any support from those areas as well?
We have enormous support from all of the law enforcement and hospitals that we've discussed, not just here locally, but throughout the region. I actually have a meeting with Chief Scheibler and Sheriff Brown later this morning to talk about some input on the building and just the direction of where we're going, because I want to make sure that we maintain good partnerships with them as we move forward.
Yeah, very much.
Question, with the law enforcement drop-off area and rooms for soberization rooms, security for the workers in this facility, is that going to be an issue? Are you going to need on-staff law enforcement? Is it going to be private security?
We've budgeted to hire security officers ourselves, but we are open to whether we would contract with a third party to hire private security, but we do see a need for that 24 hours a day within the facility.
Okay. And about how many security personnel are you expecting?
At this point,
Two per shift or more?
I believe it will be one security officer, but all of the individuals working on the unit will also be trained in therapeutic holds and things that are meant to help de-escalate situations. But having that security officer will be vitally important to us to team up with our group.
Okay.
I do have one more question. You've got, every contribution matters. Where does one go to make a contribution?
So I probably refer back to James to make sure that we say it correctly. But we do have a website live, and we have some things coming up. But James, if you want to answer that.
Well, the short answer is you can find me, and I would be happy to buy you some lunch and watch you write me a check. But we do have coming up this year our second iteration of our Masquerade on Main community fundraising event. You can go to our social media pages and you'll find links to the website, which all the money raised by this event this year will go towards the construction and the ongoing operations of the CIC. The actual website is octria.events/Masquerade on Main, which is a little hard to say and spell out. But if you go to our High Plains webpage and find the giving page or go to social media, all of those events are linked there, and that's a good place to start, or reach out to me directly.
Okay, this way our community knows, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the update, Craig. Again, heavy stuff, and I'll share the sentiments of Nathan's. We have to make some tough decisions in a way, but to protect Northwest Kansas and all of Northwest Kansas, then we have to protect every individual in Northwest Kansas. And so this is something that I think we can't, as a community, continue to ignore. It has an impact on not just individuals, but I've had the conversation with Sheriff Brown. It has an impact on our facilities at a county level. It has an impact on our health facilities at Hayes Med and others in the region. And we can't just continuously ignore it and kick it down the road and not step up to the game. So thank you for the update, and I know we'll have further discussions as we work towards a solution.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Annual noxious weed eradication progress report, 2025 management plan. Mr. Gary Haas, Noxious Weed Department.
Good morning, Commissioners. Gary
Morning.
Haas, Weed Control Supervisor. I'm here today with my annual eradication and progress report for 2024 and my noxious weed management plan for 2025 for your approval and signatures. These reports are required under the noxious weed law by the Kansas Department of Ag. The eradication report, it includes a financial summary, weed survey of 10 randomly selected sections in the county, herbicide treatment and disbursement summary, and an enforcement summary. And then there's our management plan for 2025, which is a plan of our duties, our training, and our goals. Some of our goals that I've added this year, we want to finish our loadout system in the cold storage building at our new facility and make it safe and efficient for loading our sprayers. I want to do more Canada thistle and Phragmites control on our right-of-ways and on some private property. I'm seeing quite a bit more of Canada thistle, and I need to get after that. More work, pre-emerged control for the kochia and the Palmer amaranth that's in our ditches and right-of-ways, trying to get after that. And I did a test last summer. We did some growth regulator on some of the grasses in our ditches to see if it would slow down on the mowing and stuff that's needing to be done. It didn't work real good on the warm season grasses that we have. It works good on cool season grass, but not real good on warm season. But I did find that it did a good job on our guardrails and our guard fences, so we're going to try to do more treating of those to keep the big Indian grass and stuff down, more manageable in the guardrails and guard fence. So. And then back to our report from 2024, we sprayed 6,800 acres of county right-of-ways on the 1,340 miles of roads and properties. We did 517 acres of spraying for KDOT on their right-of-ways and service yards. Did about 42 acres of spraying for the city of Hayes and Ellis. We had 528 ticket sales of herbicide, selling 24,689 gallons for the treatments of noxious weeds on 173,069 acres. We had 3 noxious weed inspections for musk thistle, which is down a lot from what it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. On the tree, on some of our new duties on the tree and brush removal, we spent 406 man-hours on tree removal, cutting 94 trailer loads of tree and brush that we took to the landfill and other burn piles that we had. And we did mowing on the roadside for 569 man-hours on 834 miles. We still had our pesticide container recycle program, and it netted 437 containers. And in 24, our only snow events, which we did parking lots and work on that, was in January of 24. We had 145 man-hours doing snow removal and spreading salt sand. So it's kind of a rundown of our 24 and some of what we planned for 25. We're enjoying the new facility we have now, and we're trying to get it all up and running the way we need it to. Have any questions?
The Canadian thistle, I see you have on private lands, you got 24, and then you got 13. How are these, I guess, brought to your attention as far as on the private land? Just
Private-
individual calls in? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
some of it, or if we see it on a right-of-way, we know it's usually going down a stream or down the, just a draw whenever there's high water and stuff. So if we follow that a little farther onto the private, we'll find it's usually, if it's in our right-of-way on our little strip, it's probably down farther, or it's upstream, and that's how it got on our right-of-way. So a lot of it's on it. It's mainly concentrated on some of the same tributaries, I guess is what
Okay.
you'd call it.
Because have you seen an increase in that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have.
okay.
Yeah. And for some reason, it's kind of in some of this, well, it's the same type of soils and stuff that it's growing on, but some of the same areas where the Phragmites also is growing, there'll be both of them kind of mingled amongst each other.
Okay. And as far as that Phragmite, are you noticing hot areas or more damp? Is it, which part of the county is it, or?
There's a little bit all over.
Okay,
I mean, the river areas, the Smoky and the Saline both have a lot, but then now it's in a lot of the waterways. And in them areas, we don't really have a good way of controlling it.
right,
But where we do is like in waterways and in our ditches. And
Okay.
in a farmer's waterway, it'll start out, it's just a small little half an acre, and all of a sudden it's, there's 5 acres, it's totally taken out the brome grass, and that's all there is. It does seem it's fairly easy to kill, but, so we've had fairly good results with that.
okay, I know, because I've got some, and I've been experimenting, and instead of spraying, because I don't want to get the rest of my grass, I've been mowing it. It does not like to be mowed.
Yeah.
It
yeah,
will
yeah,
dwindle down pretty quick,
Yeah,
so,
that's good.
in 2 years,
Yeah,
so,
so we're giving a try on that,
yeah,
so.
okay, all right, thanks, Gary.
Mhm.
How's our right-of-way cleanup with trees and brush removal going? Have we seen good progress with that? With the
Yeah,
number
well,
of
we
hours
had,
spent?
no, I mean, here with the move and everything that started, this winter we have not really done any. I got about a half a dozen spots that I know I gotta get done this spring yet before we start spraying. But with all the building we have been doing in the new facility and that, there hasn't been much. And there is we cannot be cutting trees after March 31st because of some bat that Brendan has brought to my attention. So like from April through November, the tree cutting kind of has to cease.
Okay,
So, but we're going to get after the ones we have to here in the spring, and this fall, we plan on having a good winter again and
Got it.
going after the trees.
okay.
Yeah.
Are you fully staffed? I see your staff
Yep,
got
we are,
3
yeah.
spray techs, but 2 of them are fairly new. right?
Yes. We had August, and we were down 2 guys in August and most of September, so that was kind of in a peak time where we needed people. So that was another thing, and we went right from that to starting the move, getting all our stuff gathered.
I think a few months ago, side-by-side was damaged. I think we replaced it. We get
Yes.
that in and
Yeah, that's
equipped
up
and
in
all
the-
that.
Yeah. We got it ready, and Greg with Buildings and Grounds has had it for the winter with the snow plow, and we need to get it back and get our sprayer equipment mounted in it, and get it going.
I don't have any questions. I got them signed here, so I move to approve the annual noxious weed eradication progress report for 2024 and approve the 2025 management plan.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second on the table. Any further questions
No, I have
for
none.
Gary here before we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, passes 3-0. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Gary.
Commissioners.
We got the Registered of Deeds vault removal. Darren, present on the award of bid to remove the vault in the Register of Deeds office.
Good morning, Commissioners. Darren Myers, County Administrator. Next item on agenda is to consider the proposal to remove a vault or a encased vault in concrete in the Register of Deeds office. Becky's in the audience here if you have any direct questions for her on the room itself. But basically, it's a closet about 10 foot by 10 foot, which is a significant portion of it is this vault, which makes the room essentially unoccupiable to put any storage. She has enough room to open the door and put some boxes on the floor and stack them up, and that's about it. This has been considered for many years. The vault has never been used by the county. We can't even open it. Becky has tried banker security on site to open it, reset the combination codes. Their only solution is to have to drill through the door to release the key pins to open the door up. So it's not needed anyway. We did go out for bid. The commission did approve allowing us to do that. We got a bid back from commercial builders. one other local contractor did come and look at it. And commercial builders, when they were here, they do have experience with removing 3 or 4 of these vaults in other locations, not within Ellis County, but other banks throughout. There were some other counties, some other areas, I'm not sure where they're at. Came in about the estimate that we had. The treasurer looked at removing this, possibly removing this several years ago when he was trying to do a external kiosk for processing tags and everything. And so it's about the same price that we had before. This does not include, the price here does not include any exterior modifications of the building. If you look, when you enter the building, there's a little, or a metal plate over that deposit box entry. That would stay there. That's the intent, to keep it there, just to reduce the costs, but cut everything out on the inside of the building to make it a full storage room for the Register of Deeds. Worst case scenario would be that we would have to remove that deposit box entrance and then replace the glass on the outside, which would be several $1,000s more. So just in the taste of trying to save some money, we're going to try to leave that in place. It has really no negative function of being out there except for the panel being over the box entry. So with that, we're asking the commission to approve the bid and take any questions, or if you had anything specific for Becky, I'm sure she'd be happy to come up and talk.
With that deposit box entrance that is currently covered, will that be weather tight at the end of this?
We've never had any water intrusion into the building the way it sits now.
Okay.
It's got a metal panel that's somehow adhered to the entry, and never had any water entry into the building that I'm aware of, but Becky can confirm that.
Okay. I didn't know if it would possibly enter or protrude into the safe that's there that we can't see.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have never had water coming through that,
Okay.
no.
If it need be, I guess we could redo that plate on the exterior to silicone, take the plate off, re-adhere it, re-silicone, and make it more weather tight.
And if we're gonna leave the plate, I just wanted to make sure we don't cause damage later on if we finish out that space.
Tear it out, redo the wall, and then have water that we'd have to re-tear it out.
Correct.
Correct.
Which, that's one of my questions was, so we tear it out, we're not replacing the backside, but what are we doing on the interior then? Are we gonna?
So the
Build it.
concrete is poured, from their experience on previous vaults, there's a box that sits there, a metal box, and then it's got a chute that comes and sits on top of the box, and then all that is encased in concrete. They said in the previous ones that they've replaced, that's all just on top of the floor that's there. And there's no adhering to the floor, so they would just clean up, make the floor as smooth as possible, and then where the concrete is attached to the exterior part of the wall, that would be removed, and then the bid was just to cover it back up with sheetrock and then mud and tape it, just so it meets fire code, that we don't have any, but it's not texturing, wallpapering, painting, or anything, it's just a storeroom.
Yeah.
And she just
We'll
wants-
just leave the floor concrete.
Okay.
It doesn't need
Will that
carpet in
box-
there.
Will it get out the door? So we measure it to make sure, once we tear it out, I mean, I got a piano in my basement that'll never come out of that basement.
So the concrete has to be dismantled. They're bringing a contractor in to cut the concrete away. If it were to come out the way it sits, it would not fit. The door would have to come out, but once they take the concrete away from the box, because it's poured around it, and I guess I don't have a picture on here, but the box on the inside, based on the size of the door, will come out through their closet, or their closet door, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And we don't, so this was a vault from the bank. We've never, as a county, we've never been able to open it or anything. So there's no liability from the standpoint of what's in there from a county side. But is there any liability if somebody eventually opens it up and there's old bank statements and stuff in there, like, that we've discarded this? Is there a reason to believe we would have it, that would come back on us to discarding it.
Bill Jeter, County Councilor, I think we just have to wait and see what's in there. May depend on what it is, but I don't know where we'd have any responsibility for it.
Because there's no counting
If it's something
information,
that,
'cause we,
that Commerce Bank left, then it's, may just be returned to them. They can destroy it or save it or whatever they want to do with it.
There might even be some voting papers in there, clerk. Who knows what's in
Yeah.
there? Who knows what's in there?
It's unlikely that there is anything in there. It has been secured on the exterior.
Oh,
and
okay.
Greg would have, somebody would have noticed that that plate would have been removed from the
Okay.
building. Nobody would have ripped it off and put something back in there and then been kind enough to put the plate back to the building. So I can just make sure that if there is that concern, when commercial builders gets to the point of opening it up, however that is, once they get the concrete out, they're a reputable company. They do a lot of work around, I mean, they're working with High Plains Mental Health on their facility. I'm sure if there's something in there that they would let us know, and then even if it is meaningless, but it was something that was supposed to be addressed to the bank when they were still here, we would get that turned over to the bank and they could make that determination of if something needed to be done with it.
Okay.
I think that would be the right thing to do instead of just disposing it or even them disposing of something without taking any action on it.
Okay.
okay.
I know she's always said that she needs some storage. Well, here you go.
I
So-
do.
You do, yeah. Yep, for sure. The other thing is also thank commercial builders for, if you read through their contract, that they do it off hours, which is also nice too. That's working together. I like that part.
That was one thing that we put in the specs is to try to do in the evenings or a weekend because it's gonna be jackhammering and saw cutting of getting all that out of there. So they will either come in overnight or over on a weekend. It might even be a weekend. As you know, it's tax season, so even if we close at 4 to 5 p.m., depending which off it is here, Adams Brown is still open later in the evening, so we'll try to make it best for everybody.
Okay. With that, I'll move to approve PO number 7894 to remove the security vault in the Register of Deeds office.
I'll second it.
Okay, you got a motion and a second on the table on the, any further discussion or questions for Becky or Darren? Okay.
Thank
No.
you very much.
All those in
Thank you.
favor
Thank
say
you.
aye.
Aye.
No
Thank you, Becky.
opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
48th Street repairs and Vineyard and Commerce Road improvements. Hear from Brandon McKay and provide some direction of the staff to proceed with the road repairs and improvements.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Good
Brendan
morning.
McKay, Ellis County Public Works Director. Before you is information we received from Bettis for the two projects. It's been a long day already with the snow. For the two project locations, 48th Street and Vineyard and Commerce, or more commonly known as the Home Depot bypass. So we met with them back in January, between the snowstorms we've had, to go out with Bettis staff to look at both locations to see if they were interested in submitting an estimate to the county for it, partnering off the state project they've got going later this summer, and they were. So with that said, they came back and said, we'd like to submit two 2-inch lifts for 48th Street instead of just a 4-inch cut and then a 2-inch inlay. They felt that we'd have a better finished product with 4 inches, and I agree as well. So that extra 2-inch lift is an add alternate that the commission decided to do. It saved the county work from having to go back to every entrance along 48th Street and shave off the lip of the entrance, because if we're only putting 2 inches back, you're gonna have a step at every entrance out there, and some good portion of those entrances are hard surface with concrete. So we would have to be grinding the concrete. And with the two separate lifts, we'd have better driving surface, and we wouldn't have that grade change there at those entrances. Similar stating with there on Vineyard, with the work the county's doing to prepare the base for that, milling in the existing rock with sand and installing the larger drainage structures that need to be installed there, and doing the prime seal coat. So prime seal is the shot of oil that you lay down before you lay down asphalt or any other materials. Basically, it creates a layer that doesn't allow the water to work its way up through the asphalt or hard surface. County will be doing that portion of the project if approved, as well as the prep work for it, and we had them submit a 2-inch with an optional 2-inch over the top. 4 inches is better than 2 inches for that amount of traffic, but if we can only do 2 inches, it's all we can do, and we'll do with what we can get. With that said, we have 1.15 set aside in capital right now for this project, and both project costs with the portion the county is going to need to pick up with culverts and the prime seal, we're looking at 1.3, 1.33. But the city does have a share in this, and I know Darren's been meeting with the city manager to discuss what their contribution levels will be. I know originally they had 200,000 set aside for 48th Street repairs when we were looking at doing a cost share project. But I'll leave it to Darren to speak more on what his discussions were with the city portion to, that's all.
Okay. Let's discuss 48th Street first.
Sure.
And I'll go ahead, Darren, and kind of give us an update on the city's discussion.
Yes, so the city has dedicated funding already, because as the commission knows, on 48th Street specifically, Brendan has tried 3 times to work to have a complete reconstruction of 48th Street done. Part of that was to put a grant in with KDOT. We've been unsuccessful. But as part of that, to show cooperation between the city and the county to do a bigger project, the city has committed $200,000 for 48th Street. The process here, this is the first this is really came to public, so the discussion today is kind of preliminary for your commission to discuss this. The city manager is going to be working, he has spoken individually with the city commissioners at this point, and I believe the plan is this week at their work session to discuss the project as well, and then next week at their commission meeting, actually make approval for funding for both projects. That way, in time, your next commission meeting, which is March 4th, you will have the commitment approved by the city, which would reduce the overall project, as Brendan mentioned. The city manager tentatively says that the city is still willing to contribute $200,000 to the 48th Street project, and then the Vineyard Road or 41st or the Home Depot bypass, whichever you want to refer it to as, is basically 2.5 miles of 4 inches of asphalt. So the way Toby, the city manager, has kind of looked at that up, is they've looked at their linear footage of road that they have. For those that don't know, the city actually owns the road and a 100-footer right-of-way all the way from Home Depot east to 260th. So that section of the road is theirs, and that amount that the city's looking to contribute is an additional $177,000 for their portion of the road. When Brendan and I met last week, we were looking at the total project completely. I don't want to speak on what the work that they do, but Brendan and I feel comfortable that that proposal is sufficient enough to cover the work that we have to do outside of just the 4 inches of pavement, which is reshaping the road, pulling the ditches, getting the drainage correct, and doing some culvert and repair work, as well as the oil that will need to be treated on the road before the asphalt starts. So that's kind of the update and the process for the next couple of weeks with the city. And do keep in mind, I did talk to Toby about that. That is not approved yet. That's just a proposal. It's only individual conversations, and they do have future discussions to work towards that as well.
Okay. Well, we had talked about this back in September with the city. That'd be correct?
August of 24.
Okay. So at that time, Brendan, you brought up the cracking that we currently have on 48th Street and milling down the 4 inches to do that. At the time, you were talking do a 2-inch and then come back with another 2-inch in a couple of years. By going with the 4-inch right away, are we going to look at it, having any of those cracks that are there transpire through or permeate through, I guess?
So without total reconstruction, there's always the chance of those cracks coming back through. And by laying it in 2 separate lifts, it's the same as waiting 7 years and putting down another 2-inch lift.
Okay,
They're, as you saw with the samples, I know Neil saw them when he was at my office. What's currently there is about 8 inches of asphalt that's laid down in 4 2-inch lifts. That asphalt, just the blend that was made at the time, they had issues with rutting, so they stiffened up the mix. The problem was, in that point in time, that it's too stiff a mix. Because we're not the only county that experienced it. I talked with Johnson County, they've done similar to a road that was built in 2000. Similar time for this one, similar mix design, same issue with it stretched apart. They went with a fiber mesh matting on the cracking layer after milling it. The cost of that was, for their time, about the cost of another 1.5 inch, 2-inch lift of asphalt. And they've stated they wish they went with the extra asphalt instead of that paving mesh layer. Without total removal, there's always a chance of those cracks coming back, unfortunately.
okay.
But with additional layers on top, you minimize the chance of reflections. So it gets less, like throwing a stone in a pot of water. Big waves right up in front, but as it gets further out, those ripples are lesser.
Current composition of 48th Street asphalt, is that a hot mix or was
Hot
that?
mix road.
Okay. So, but it was done in 2-inch lifts is what you're talking?
Correct, yes. So you don't normally, unlike concrete pavement where it's just one shot, asphalt you lay in these lifts so you get proper compaction between the levels.
Okay,
So 2 inches generally what you see. I mean, some places go as small as 1/2 inch between lifts if you're going looking at super pave and different design manuals.
okay.
That, we're not to the point of actually asking for approval as well, but
Right.
one thing that Brendan has worked and Bettis is in their proposal, you see the proposal for 48th Street, but part of their proposal, I guess, in the fine print is if that project is 419,000, when they do mill that down, we will have the chance between Brendan's staff, the city staff, as well as Bettis to look at what's beneath at that 4-inch level, and there's $300 per ton hot mix asphalt patching. So if they mill down the 4-inch and they feel that something's weak or they need to fill in, or Brendan just says, I want you to fill this in, even if they would say not to. I mean, their name's on the project, but there could be an additional cost of $300 per ton to fill in any of those cracks or any area that maybe needs to be removed and repaired underneath that basis too. And that was shared with Toby, and that was one thing that he did appreciate being considered as well.
Because the goal is to make this a good road, you know, a solid road for another 20 years.
About 20 years. And the goal, I think, is, I mean, that was kind of, you hit on, we were gonna do 2 inches, wait a few years, do another 2 inches, and wait a few years and see if there's any correction, and then the city would take it over on all sides.
Yeah.
This seems to kind of move that up a little bit. We can,
It moves it up. It's been what's recommended from the contractor.
can they, and I don't know anything about road repair, but can they not do 2 inches and then do another 2 inches right, going back the other way, and still make a layered surface?
Do you mean by like going
I
each,
think
there's
that's
probably
what-
one
I think
lane
that's
width at a
what
time.
they're
That's what they're
referring
doing.
to.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. They're gonna take off
We're just not
they'll
letting
take
it.
off all 4 inches in one pass
Yeah.
ideally. And then they'll lay a 2-inch lift,
Okay,
one lane width generally at a time, depending upon how wide their paver is.
Okay.
A lot of times they only do one lane at a time. And then they come back the other direction with their 2-inch,
okay,
and then they'll come back and do the 2-inch on top of the initial 2-inch layer.
okay. So we're still getting the layers.
Yes, we're
I was
still
thinking
getting
it's
layers.
gonna be a 4-inch, one pass.
No.
4-inch.
So
Okay,
it's 2 lifts
okay.
if we do the alternate.
Okay.
You could potentially go thicker than that, but most commonly is 1.5 to 2 inches if you're doing multiple lifts as you're laying it out.
Okay.
Okay.
As you and I had spoke last week, and you said you had another place that you were going to do a core sample, and we had talked about, I would really like to know and drill through one of those cracks just to see what's going on underneath.
And that's our intent. With this
Okay.
temperature this week,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not
not going to,
gonna
Yeah.
have my guys outside doing that, because you have to have water with the drill as well.
Yeah.
It'd be a little tough for them to
No.
keep
No.
that from freezing and burning up bits. But we have another project coming up for Cathedral, or Catherine Road,
Okay,
that's been on the plans, and I want cores of that road to see more of what's underneath there. It's been a cold in place recycled road before, just like Ellis Avenue. We're not anticipating it being as thick as Ellis Avenue was, but without having cores on it, I can go back off what everyone remembers, but it's been there for a while. So when we rent the core machine for that, we're gonna core out a few of the cracks.
good. I wanna be there or learn about that. There's
gonna
gotta
come
be
out in
something
pieces.
going on under there.
But a lot of that is the asphalt itself. So talking with the experts on it, in the late 90s and early 2000s, the mix design was very soft, very pliable and flexible. So they had issues with rutting. So where the tires sunk down in the road and left your little turtle backs in the road. To fix that, they stiffened up the mix design in the late 90s, early 2000, which was great. The problem was the mix was so stiff that it didn't allow itself to flex with temperature changes. So it's pulled itself apart because that road hasn't been able to absorb the shock of the temperature change. So it's not a base failure. That's an asphalt failure that we're seeing on that roadway.
I'm just,
It's an asphalt material failure, not a base material failure, is what's shown on that road. And it's matching with what the experts have told us and others that have had similar age structures have seen on their roads.
okay. I guess my concern was the water running down there, freeze thaw, what it
Yeah.
done to that bottom base.
Nope,
so-
and it has been mastic sealed before. That mastic seal has since fallen into the crack further or missing, but that road also has fairly good drainage. And it was a very tight base. So we haven't seen any distress on the pavement indicating water intrusion to the base causing additional failures. The failures that we're seeing is a result of the asphalt material itself failing, not the substructure failing.
When we're doing these 2-inch lifts, like years ago, they used to do that, and they would let the public drive on that, or are we gonna go 2-inch, go right back on, and they're gonna roll?
I'm gonna go
Pack?
with whatever they recommend we
Okay.
do on it.
Okay,
They do it a lot more than we do.
yep.
On 48, that 419, does that include striping afterwards?
That does not include striping.
Okay.
That's something we'll do on our own.
We can do that at
Yeah,
county level, okay.
Well, we budget so many years of so many miles of striping each year.
Yeah.
I also have a grant this year for updating the pavement markings on the majority of the FAS routes, the
Okay.
paved FAS routes. This is not one of those per se, including that project, but with the additional funding for striping I have this year, I can include that 0.85 of a mile.
It's Hall Street, but where it connects, and we've had issues where people they're essentially driving on the shoulder.
The paved
Are we-
shoulder.
Are we
No-
addressing that in any way?
Not doing any widening on that. They'll
Okay.
just have Bettis will install temporary pavement markings if approved to get us through to when we get the stripers out here.
Okay, okay. And then,
There's been a nice white line painted saying, don't
Yeah.
drive below this, and it hasn't helped.
yeah,
We put asphalt millings there from when we milled the bridge approach.
Yeah.
Instead of hauling that back to the shop and hauling rock back out to where people had driven some more, they've driven that shoulder down so far. I put those millings there, it saved my crew's time from having to go change out materials. We just used material from the project right a stone's throw away and put it in there. And it has been driven so hard, it looks like a paved turning lane. We've actually gotten calls saying thank you for adding a paved turning lane, and it is just asphalt millings that they have been driven on so hard.
so the 419 for that project, what were we budgeting for it again?
We had 600 for that one,
Okay,
because that was we're doing the grant project with a total replacement.
600,000 for the county, and then that's the portion of the 200,000 for the city. So total would be, we had budgeted 800,000, but obviously it's less than that, so.
okay.
Okay.
I know there's some individuals was asking about raising the speed limit on it, but I guess that's another bucket to kick down the road if we get, yeah.
Okay.
Fast enough. Right?
Yeah.
It's
So
time.
I think with 48, I think this helps us get 2 years ahead of where we wanted to be.
Yes.
So I'm in favor of getting that done at that. It's tremendously tremendous value for us. So moving on to Vineyard Commerce 41st to 60th to 80th, that whole thing.
Yes, sir.
Let's open up discussion on direction there.
My biggest concern is where it goes from concrete to asphalt, but we're probably gonna rely on the contractor too, because they've, I'm sure, done
We'll do
that.
some of that ourselves, or
Okay.
we'll ask the city for assistance with that to smooth out their transition before pavement is installed. Because their road currently tips up and then it flattens straight out, actually drops downwards to the unpaved section.
Okay.
So that edge will need to be smoothed out or rounded more. Otherwise, you'll have a sharp break point, even, shouldn't be worse than it is right now, but without grinding that edge or dressing that, it'd be a very sharp break point.
Yeah.
There's a very strong hit when you go over it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Been like that for the 5 years I've been here.
Are there many culverts that are gonna need replaced or upgraded before this project
So
kicks
Darren,
off?
if you want to scroll down to that inclusion of the drainage study, we had 2 drainage studies conducted on Vineyard and Commerce Parkway, or Vineyard and 270th, or 41st and 270th. And so there was, a lot of it is just cleaning. The city section has no visible ditches, they've been farm shut. But those culverts need end sections and cleaned out. And then there is 3 areas that need either a larger culvert installed or additional culvert installed for better drainage area.
So I guess the question is they may have been farm shut or they need clean, but do we know the age of the culverts? I don't wanna see us.
We're replacing them,
Okay,
because if I'm putting asphalt over the top, I'm going to
okay,
replace.
thank you.
Yes.
That's what I was leaning towards. I don't wanna see.
There's one at the
Back.
intersection that we have pried open probably 14 times
Uh-huh.
in the past year from it being closed shut. I'm just going to replace that one because, like a paperclip, you can only bend it so many times before it breaks out. And we have bent that culvert a lot to get it back into shape.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not on the list for needing increased sizing, but it's
It
gonna be
needs
replaced because it's cheaper now than it is after we put asphalt over the top of it.
Exactly. Now, when we replace those, because we're gonna disrupt the base layer of the road or the current road layer, that's potentially a weak point.
We're doing that this spring,
Okay.
well before this project will take place. The road
Okay.
has time to settle.
Okay.
Well,
Are there
probably
any,
before
are
the
there any
spring.
special precautions that you're gonna take to strengthen those spots?
That's where the milling of the sand and the rock together, we'll do that. If we haven't, and doing it so early gives it time for the material to settle in place. There'll be a final reshaping right before pavement rolls on top of it. If we find an area where we have a spring or a weak area, that will be the time that the county will either do a cement treated base or a fly ash treated base if necessary.
Okay.
But from the work we've already done to the roadway, we have not found any issues or concerns like that.
Okay.
Explain that map to me better. And I got it oriented. What's the red, blue, and green? Tell me.
Oh, those are just the drainage streams themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
For areas, terraces and things like that, and that's from the engineers that show where the water is going to.
So what you should see here, where I keep highlighting where this culvert E is at, that's basically at the intersection of Airbase and 270th, heading north towards Vineyard,
Floods out.
and then,
That's where one of the larger culverts is going to be installed, and we're actually gonna change the grade there, so it's not so much of a drop off pavement like it
Yeah.
currently is.
so that's the culvert on 270th, and then I'll go down here to Vineyard Road. This is heading 270th and Vineyard down here at the bottom of the map, up to, you're heading east to the top of the map, which is towards Home Depot. And then there's the different culverts.
Culverts there, right, where the pin drops. Pins
Yes.
are. Okay.
And 2 of these need additional culverts, if I'm not mistaken. It should show on the next sheet.
Yes. That was last sheet.
Was the first sheet. Yeah, so E is the one on Commerce Parkway or 270th, right by the intersection, just a little bit north of the intersection. That one we get replaced with larger culvert
Okay.
and end sections. And then there's 2 on the second picture, location C and location B, where it's recommended we increase the drainage size.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't talking to the microphone. Hopefully it was loud enough.
Gotcha.
So those 5 culverts, they exist now.
Yes,
We don't need to add a 6th or 7th culvert somewhere along.
no, just in those locations, those 3 locations, it's recommended that they be increased in size because the level of road we're going to install there with a paved road, we don't want water overtopping it regularly, like we could experience with what is there now.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
I don't have the storm level numbers in front of me, but it's like going from a 15-year storm event or a 10-year storm event to a 25 or a 50-year storm event. Will the road still overtop with water? Very possible. But we can't build everything like interstate for the 500 and 750-year storm events in mind. Anything over 5 is what counties generally have their structures rated for. And 25 is what you aim for on an FAS route.
So we don't need any culverts according to the last 5 years.
Well, they have overtopped when you get those strong winds.
And as you and I had spoken, Darren, the intersection there by Vineyard and 270th, I guess how far out were you going on the north side on 270th and then east on Vineyard?
I'd have to look back at the quotes for
Okay.
sure on that.
Only reason I bring that up, because I drove by there in the northeast corner of that intersection. That is the approach to that guy's field. I just see it with a hill there. There's water going to come run down. I would love to see an additional culvert go through there, especially like you said before. We got asphalt.
So-
We may as well do it right.
On that northeast corner, that water actually drains to the east from there.
But what about what comes down 270th from the hill?
It actually rolls out around, it's meant to roll round and get down and continue on Vineyard. The west side of the road has a crossroad pipe, because
Yes.
that water is funneled there and then continued south on Vineyard. So if you look at the red and blue tracks,
Mm-hmm.
you can see where we have drainage structures along here and where that water is carried to. So down here, this water is actually carried in these terraces, and it's meant to come around here and continue down Vineyard. This water here crosses the road here at this 18-inch CMP pipe and continues in this ditch south towards eventually Big Creek.
Brennan, with the intersection there at 270 and Vineyard, is the paving going to stop exactly at the intersection, or is it going to go north and east slightly for approaches on each side?
That's what he was
That's just
talking
what I
about.
was just
Okay.
asked
So
that.
it will either, if the contractor does not do that, we'll install some on our own,
Okay.
going back each direction.
Yeah.
And then the approaches off driveways, because we'll obviously be higher, so are we going?
We're gonna address those for those entrances.
Okay,
Because we're making a change to the roadway, we
So
do
we'll take care
readdress
of
those, yes, sir.
okay.
Just like when we do an overlay to a paved road, we will soften the edges of any paved or unpaved entrance along those.
Okay, because I don't want to see us damage a new surface.
Yes.
Just so everybody in the community knows, final finished product, what width are we going to
24
have?
feet on this stretch,
Okay.
section of roadway.
All right.
That's just as wide and wider than Old 40 is in spots. It's about all we can fit in there. We only have 53 feet of right-of-way at that intersection going west. I've only been able to locate 13 feet of additional right-of-way from the initially platted 40 feet on the north side of the road for the half section. And at the half section, it jumps to 13 additional feet on the south side of the road. So at the half section, we go to 66 feet of right-of-way. This was back in last fall when I met with Midwest Energy and spoke with the commissioners. If we were going to be doing something or future improvements, we would need to make a decision then, because there's potential for a large utility line going in there on the south side of the road. That at the time was going to be tens of thousands of dollars to relocate, but after it's installed, we'd be better off just moving the road. It'd be cheaper.
Go back, the city, or you, Darren, so the city owns the road to 260th?
Mhm.
They actually have right of way all the way through the intersection of 260th Avenue.
Because it's concrete right now to like Vineyard Park and just a little beyond, but not to 260th.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. But we maintain that as far as blading and, because they don't have, so once this is done, what does that, will we still maintain the road fully then through 260th up to Vineyard beyond? Will the city take on? What's,
To be honest with you, I have not had that discussion with Toby. I can visit with him this week. I would believe it would, since it becomes a hard surface road that they can maintain in the future. This is just an assumption, but I would think that that half mile would be maintained by them in the future, but I can confirm that and let the commission know and make sure that that is addressed. That way, if your intent is to not maintain that road in the future after it's paved, I can express that to him in advance.
I don't know if that is our intent or not, but it's one of those things that I'd rather have that discussion, make sure we're clear before next winter and
Don't
we have
complete
these
the-
snowstorms and now we're arguing over who's supposed to blade what or why, who's responsible, so.
Yeah, take those assumptions out and
Yep.
just
Right.
make sure
Get 'em
we
out.
all agree up front. Correct?
Mhm.
And with that, the speed limit will stay the same, 55 on there, correct?
Yes.
Until comes to whatever the city decides in, where they're annexed in? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about how thick we're going there. At first it was what, 2 inches or 1.5 inches?
2 inches is what we had originally proposed to them based on costs and what we have found. Costs came in very reasonable, so I went back to them to ask them for an additional 2-inch lift. So it is more than we have budgeted for this road. But if we combine both projects together and the city contributes their portion, we have budgeted enough for both projects to do the original scope of both projects and both add alternates.
Okay.
So putting 4 inches of asphalt putting 4 inches of asphalt in both places.
So taking the 400, the 48th Street was originally 800, now it's 400, so taking that 400 savings and applying to this to be able to do the add alternates and
Yes,
do
sir.
both projects within the scope of that same budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when we
With
met this
everything
past
additional.
fall, my budget numbers based on county performing all work and installing either cold mix road or a prime and seal, double seal, we had about $550,000 set aside for the county to use county forces and county equipment to do that roadway.
Okay.
For a little bit more money, we can end up with a traditional asphalt road
Mhm.
product.
And to add to that as well, the cost share amount that the city has agreed to tentatively at this point includes their preference of a 4-inch base instead of a 2-inch base.
Okay. As Commissioner Liker was saying before, as far as the approach is going off, are we going to asphalt out a ways? Because you know what happens when you fall off there with, say they take a cattle trailer in there, whatever it may be?
If
Is that,
they're hard surfaced already, we'll hard surface them. If they're not, we won't.
okay,
We have lots of unsurfaced entrances off of our paved roads as it is that we haven't seen that sort of failure with. We fill it in so it meets grade.
okay.
Over time, if they wear it out, they're gonna have to add material themselves back in there, just like any other entrance. But putting asphalt back over the top of that, it's been outside of the scope of this project and outside of the scope of any of our other projects we've done. If they have asphalt, we add asphalt back over the top. If it's rock, we'll come back in with rock. If it's millions, we'll add millions, or if it's dirt, we just add dirt back in
Okay,
place.
so 260th then is what you're saying, it's gonna come right up to it with rock and keep it maintained?
We'll do what we'll do on there is most likely what we'll do at the intersection of Vineyard and
Okay.
270th. We'll add a safety lip on it.
Okay.
Do you know at this time, as far as we set up 13 districts for blading and stuff, how this will impact that? Any savings by not having to do this and now being able to?
It takes away 2.5 miles from a territory operator.
Okay.
And so with that in mind, that when we redid our 13 districts to the 13 territories, that territory wasn't touched as much with the anticipation of this 2.5 miles being taken off their
Yeah.
plate.
Okay. Okay.
I like the proposal that we have in front of
Right.
us. It's
Mhm.
us able to do more and
Yep.
provide
That's
a
it.
better overall project afterwards.
That's that working together,
I
so.
think so too. I don't know what we did to get such good luck to be able to get this done in the way, this manner. Feel like approving it now, so that way we don't have to risk our luck if something pops up, but there's still a little bit of a process to talk to the city, let the city and their commissioners, put their input into it, but I feel fortunate, looking forward to getting this put out there.
And there's minimal cost savings that can be realized if we do the traffic control for both projects. I'd recommend against trying to save that. Same thing with the hauling of the materials. The amount that we'd save is gonna take away from us doing our own asphalt work.
Mhm.
Because this will be going on the same time with the 10,000 tons of asphalt mix we're laying on roads and 24 miles of roads that we have to seal ourselves.
Mhm.
And I'd just as soon not take, I mean, if this contractor comes in and hires local haulers, I mean, I don't want to take dollars out of a local private individual trying to make money out of it. So we have plenty of work to do on our own too.
Yeah, I'd rather get this done one way and continue with our own plans with what we're doing with the county, so.
Yeah.
Then we had also talked about signage as far as stopping Vineyard, and we pretty much, I mean, I just want to
Yeah, so
discuss
after
that.
completion, we'd have to do an engineering study if we want to
Okay.
change potentially change how that intersection works. The engineer could come back and say that, nope, this is signed appropriately, and traffic levels say it's signed appropriately currently. So doing a traffic study right now on it would make no difference to the engineer's opinion because it's signed appropriately. But after it's paved, the commission
Right.
advised me to reach out
Stop
to
signs are
affirm.
on north and south now
Yes, sir.
currently,
On
and not
270.
east. East-west is the throughway.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So that an engineering study can be done afterwards if the commission would like that, to see if traffic patterns have changed, to warrant the engineers changing how they would like that intersection controlled. And then the commission would have to pass a resolution on it for
It's
me to
going to
install it.
change for sure.
Most likely it would, but for right now, it's signed appropriately.
Okay.
We'd be spending a couple $1,000s for nothing to change, for them to tell us, keep it how it is.
I think we would
Wait.
best wait until after the high school's open and
Yep.
see if
Yeah.
it,
I
traffic
think at a
patterns really
minimum, I
change.
just think you're gonna need blinking lights to let
And we,
people know
we can do
where.
that. Blinking lights is not a change, so
Okay.
I can put
That,
those, things like
seems
that
like
in.
at a minimum
Okay.
of
Yeah, that'd be minimal.
letting people aware ahead of time that there's a stop
Yeah.
sign coming up, instead of, I could just see them, it's a paved road, feeling like they're just gonna zip around it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not licensed to practice my engineering in this state. But even after it's paved, I don't think, the only change they would may possibly consider doing is changing it to a four-way stop.
Yeah. Okay.
Or they would
Okay.
recommend us changed is to a four-way stop. You can
Okay.
take the recommendations and do whatever you'd like. It's not recommended to not follow their recommendations for the MUTCD, but if you pass a resolution telling me to put up something, I have to put that up. It just should be backed by a licensed stamped engineering study.
And as far as on, if you recall, on 27th and 270th, where it makes that, is there going to be any fill-in in there? Because
Yes.
that's, okay, that's a
That's
pretty good
where
hump.
There's a culvert that needs to be added there
To
for
the north.
additional drainage.
Okay.
So with that part, we're going to soften that slope, so it doesn't drop, flatten out, drop again. It will be one smooth, continuous slope.
Okay.
I know as Commissioner Liker was asking when we had the culverts, what kind of, settlement, and I had suggested, putting flowable fill in, but if you're,
We have it on other roads.
okay,
I don't
Okay.
envision us needing to do that, but that's why we're doing it so far in advance of the project, that if something is to occur to it, where we have settlement issues or compaction issues, we can address that before we put asphalt over the top of it.
okay.
What's,
One last question from me on the millings on 48th. Is Bettis going to keep those?
I have
or-
to reach back out to them to see what their
Okay.
intent was for, based on their bid.
Okay.
What's, is there a time frame of how long that would take for, 41st and 270, like,
Possibly about a week each project.
really? Okay.
And they're looking at doing it end of July, August is their
Okay.
time frame
Because how,
approved.
do we know how they would close that off as they did it? Would they leave one side open to allow traffic to come through?
We're gonna leave it up to them to do
Okay.
what they feel is best with their traffic control.
There's not a real good, I'm just.
It's
thinking about
never good,
Hilltop
yeah.
Too much, but there's not a good, if they close the whole thing around, their reroute would be pretty substantial, I would think.
They'd go up to Catherine Road and come around.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's never a good time to close a roadway. I've got a road closed right now because we have a culvert that has broken stringers on it. But it's also freezing out, and my guys can't work in that weather, replacing the wooden stringers. So the road's closed, but no work's being done actively on it. We're doing work inside the shop, building the components we need. Just, unfortunately, you gotta close roads to fix them sometimes, or make improvements.
Okay.
And for a week-long time, I think people would be willing to drive slightly out of the way they're traditionally driven to have a asphalt road at the end of the,
Oh, I think so.
I would hope.
I would,
And you'll put out a PA on it anyway, I'm
Yep.
sure, and, I guess my other concern for the other businesses up in there, when this project 48th and Vineyard 270th, their traffic is going to increase. And I don't know if that's a city thing, if that's city-county combination, because it's gonna increase
You're talking about after it's done?
after it's done.
Yeah, well, portion of the roads are county roads, portion of the roads are city roads. That's why we're doing this project together.
Well, gentlemen, I like what we've been presented,
Yeah.
and I'm in favor of moving forward with the city if we can at
Mhm.
least touch base with them and make sure that everything's on board.
Yeah, and if Darren visits with Toby and who's gonna maintain it, if we are, or the city is, or see what they have to say about that, but I'm also supportive of it, get it done, and what is your schedule you're gonna, when this gets approved to start in?
We'll touch that in two topics.
On the,
on the agenda.
on the whole project, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, yeah,
Just for quick clarification, when you said who was going to take care of the road, Vineyard Road would be this, just the city would be
Right.
from essentially where Vineyard Park is to 260th.
260th, correct.
It is our intention after 260th to 270th and then down to Interstate,
Mhm.
that will be still a county road, county maintained.
Sure,
There's
Okay.
there's nothing with the city that they would maintain any section of that road.
okay.
And then 48th, the plan there, as kind of Commissioner Burgess alluded, was to get the road done several years quicker, and that would then allow any repair work, if anything were to happen, and then the city would maintain that road into the future after a couple-year evaluation period, because both sides of that road, Hall Street or 230th north of the interstate up to 52nd Street is currently the city's responsibility, and then on the east side of 48th Street over by Tractor Supply, that is all city road there. So both ends of that road are essentially city-maintained roads. So that'd be better for them to maintain in the future when you're plowing or removing snow or maintain.
I would think though, with Vineyard Road and 270, as the city expands and grows and annexes right away or increases their right away, I think their maintenance should encompass the road. If they're gonna take the right of way, I think then at those points, the transition needs to happen, or at least look at that. So there's a succession planning on those roadways.
Correct, and when we had the city-county agreement that we completed in, I'd like to say 2023, so whenever say the Brown property, 27th and Commerce, if the city were to start annexing north, if a development comes in, it is part of the agreement that when they annex a new section into the city. They would then annex both sides of the road, and then any improvements to the road can be passed on by their development plans within the city and their ordinances that they can pass those on to the developers to, if they need to turn in turn lanes, or if they want to go to concrete to support the level of traffic, that would all be then on the city and/or the developer,
Correct.
depending on how that plays out.
Which is the success, so we don't get into a situation that we've been in and that we've had to work through on the 2023 resolution.
Correct, and the city's been very good ever since that. Toby and I communicate whenever they annex road or there's new developments. The city, and they don't necessarily annex both sides of the road because it's not always in the best interest of the property owner on the other side of the road, but the city does maintain that agreement, and they do take care of the roads in those areas.
Very good.
That was getting back to my question, to 260th, to where the concrete is now. Is the city going to maintain that? Because it's already annexed in.
I would like to say yes, but without
Okay,
speaking
and
to Toby.
that's where I was
don't-
getting at.
It's
But
not fair for
I'm
me to
That's where
commit them
I'd
to
be
something.
supportive of this, except visiting with Toby, so.
I'll get that answer here this week, and then I'll email it. That way you
Okay.
have that information as soon as I have it, and then it can be discussed at our March 4th meeting.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Canterbury and Highway 40 signal lights. Brenda.
Yes. Commissioner Younger reached out to me requesting I pursue adding left turn signals for eastbound and westbound Old 40 traffic there at Canterbury. As part of that, we had our sign pole replaced due to two incidents where it was struck by a trailer and then by a vehicular accident. The pole and the mast was replaced, as well as the wiring was installed to add a left turn signal there for westbound traffic to turn south. Just in the chance that we did want to add this, wiring was already done for one side. So their proposal is to add the wiring and the cameras and the additional signals to the other side, and it is $11,180. The part that is not negotiable is the $4788, just under $5,000 for the controller. Our controller in that box was damaged and needed to be replaced. It was old enough they cannot get spare parts for it. So I believe we're currently using one of the city's spare ones. And the city has ordered and is replacing that controller for us. The new controller will be able to run the camera eyes and the signals if the turn lane is added. So since our controller broke, it dropped the price of repairs down because we have to replace that controller regardless.
So the 11,180, is that with controller and then,
That is just the price to
Okay.
add. And then the controller is an additional amount that we're already paying for.
okay. So total cost of this project, if we chose to do this, would be around the 16,000?
I've got to pay the $5,000 regardless.
Right.
So yes, the total project.
If we chose to go with the extra.
Yes, and
Okay.
if we're looking at the additional wiring we did with the insurance damage pole, I mean, we're close to that $20,000 figure that would have been needed to add protected left turn signals.
Okay.
And this does include all the programming and the fancy features that it has to have because we have special requirements being close to the railroad there. That's why there's those big square boxes, if you've ever seen them on, that say no left turn and no right turn. Those have to stay in place as well, so the controller needed to be beefed up and modernized to be able to handle the left turn signal addition.
Okay. I guess, guys, I'm going to be in favor of this with I foresee an increase in traffic when the school district changes their, school locations. And I can see an increase in our traffic.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah,
I think it's,
and the reasoning I brought this up was when I come in the mornings for commission meetings, that road is backed up. And like you said, when the high school and middle school, yeah, we're going to have 48th Vineyard. They're going to be coming from wherever. And that bypass around Hayes works great for them. And there's a lot of traffic on there.
yeah.
So,
Okay. working on, because we have left turn lanes, we just don't have the signals. And I
Yes.
just think
Correct.
this is just a, yeah, an added protection.
Yes, this will be for a protected left turn
Okay.
I think
instead
that'll
of
help.
yielding
I
to
do.
turn left.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
We don't
don't
need a
necessarily need a motion or?
No,
we
because
n-
it's under the amount that Darren can authorize me. It was mainly to get your consensus on this.
Okay.
If you are in favor of us moving forward with it, I can start the process.
Yes.
I think so.
I think
I'm good.
I'm good with it too.
2025 public works summer hours of operation. Brandon?
Correct. Sort of like I alluded to about 10 minutes ago, we've had discussions at our staff meetings about changing to our summer hours early and carrying them a little bit further to finish up the mowing season. So with that said, the staff at our meeting, we decided to go from April 1st to October 31st. Well, April 1st is a Tuesday, so we moved it to March 31st, being the first day of the work week, and ending October 31st, which is a Thursday or Friday, so that would finish off that work week. Because that gives us time in the late fall to finish up our asphalt work. This past year, the amount of asphalt work we've been doing, or projected to do, we carried on past our 10-hour days. So it slowed the process down on there, and then also with the mowing, they have the light then. That was actually brought up by the noxious weed division, if we could extend those summer hours further into the fall. And it would be like how it worked this last year and all years previous. Every week that there's a holiday, we'll revert to 5-day weeks that week. So the staff is only getting 8 hours of holiday leave. So there's no additional leave being granted to anyone.
We did this increased hours, 4-day work week last year to work on a certain project.
Yep.
It's evident that it must have worked out beneficial.
Yes, it helped us on that project, and we're doing a similar project to Catherine Road this spring.
Okay,
So that way it has time to set and cure.
okay.
Plus the work done to Vineyard and Commerce, or Vineyard and 270th. We've got a lot of projects in the works, so going to those hours helps us work with the light and allow for, if project does run long or we hit delays, we have the days that we can work with some overtime in.
Now you answered my question from before on Vineyard and that, so this relates right to it. Okay.
Yes.
What do we have built in to your budget for overtime hours?
Believe it's 1,000 hours roughly.
I'd have to look, I'd have to pull up a spreadsheet, but I can tell you the exact amount of hours. But
Okay.
basically how I figure overtime hours for all departments is for 2025's budget, I look at 2023's year, and if someone has, say, for instance, a recorded actual 88 hours, I round that up to 90. And I go on 5-hour increments per employee based on that year, and then that's what we use for each department.
Okay,
Actually, I apologize, except for Public Works. We do estimate extra because it's been the commissioner's request in the previous years that if the Public Works employees would like to work overtime to do certain projects, or they need it, like on a winter storm, they do have more flexibility to work more overtime. Say if a grader wanted to work 50 hours in a week and he could go out and Brendan would approve it, could work a weekend, et cetera, to do some road improvements.
okay.
Because you did that in the past with the mowing, correct?
Yes, if
Yeah.
we need to finish up mowing,
Yep.
or a lot of it boils down to the winter storm events or projects. Sometimes when you're out there with a tanker load of oil, we have to take all the oil off that truck. We can't send it back full.
Right.
We don't get credited for it. So when we've had issues with equipment or materials, we've had times when we've had staff out still sealing roads. Last year it went to 8:30. They were still north of Ellis trying to seal, so they could finish off taking the last of the oil off the truck, so we could free up that distributor.
Okay.
So that's where the overtime is. We have to work then. Same thing with these snow events. We have to work. We get calls even when we are out, as commissioners are aware. So I had some of my staff in early this morning. we didn't have people on the roads plowing because there wasn't stuff on the roads, but I was out at 2 o'clock this morning. I had staff in at 4:30 and 5 o'clock checking roads as well. That's where a lot of our overtime goes to.
Okay.
And there isn't a motion here. Looking back, I didn't have a motion in the previous one. If you need a motion, we can come up with something for that.
Do we need a motion to go ahead and approve this?
No, you can just reach a consensus and authorize Brendan to go ahead and initiate the summer hours.
Okay. I'm good with allowing Brendan to initiate summer hours on his behest.
And I'll second it.
Yeah, it works, yes. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Brandon. You are done, I think. Next item, Ellis County Fire Department truck uplifting. Award a bid to swap utility bodies on fire brush truck with other improvements, upgrades of installed equipment. And I think Darren's giving us the update on that.
Darren Myers, County Administrator and Fire Chief. Next item here is to consider the upfitting of a 2025 F-550 chassis that was ordered to replace a 2009 F-550, which is a brush truck over in Ellis. At the end of 2024, you approved the similar type upfitting cost for the brush truck over in Ellis with a 2024 F-550. That is actually currently in the shop right now as we speak. It started on Friday with that transfer of chassis underneath the fire body. So basically, what we're referring to here is the bed portion of the truck. The reflective, the lights, the radios, removing the Foam Pro system that's on there, changing all the lights to from rotators essentially to LED lights, putting a front brush guard or full bumper replacement on it, and then adding a compartment to the passenger side of the bed itself for more storage of tools, equipment, and protective gear. It is slightly, just I think $500 more than the bid for the last truck, just due to the 2025, their hourly rate for shop rate for labor increased it by a couple dollars an hour. I'm not sure exactly how much, but that's what the difference is between the two bids that you approved. And just over the weekend, did get the notification from Enterprise that that F-550 chassis has been built and is waiting, or is staged, waiting for shipment. So we could have it in 2 weeks to a month, but approving it now allows me to let Hayes Fire know to order all the equipment, so that way hopefully everything will be here by the time the truck gets here, and then getting it fit into their schedule for the replacement.
I don't have any questions, either of you.
None.
I have none.
Okay, so with that, I'll move to approve PO number 7904 to Hayes Fire and Rescue for the brush truck body remount.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, passes 3-0. Next topic, Purple Wave auction, approve the items listed to be sold on Purple Wave. Darren?
Do feel a little short there. He asked Brendan a whole bunch of questions. I don't get a single question, but
You're still important.
the last item for today is the Purple Wave list. The departments have submitted a list of equipment and supplies that they no longer need. Some of it's equipment, some of it's from Public Works, some of it's vehicles that have been replaced. The equipment lists are getting shorter, or smaller vehicles are getting smaller because more of the vehicles are being transferred over into the fleet program. But this is the list that we have to date, and if the commission were to approve this list, we'll contact Purple Wave. They usually take a couple weeks to make it to Ellis County to take their pictures. At that point, within a week or so later, they post it on their website, and they are active for the bidding process for a month. And then there's a certain time frame for payment following the closure date of the sale, as well as a allotment of time for them to pick up the equipment. So with that, we're just asking for approval to move forward with the Purple Wave site auction.
question on the 2015 backhoe from environmental. It has the no flat tires on it, I'm sure. But my question would be, are we getting rid of the worst condition things and keeping the best, or?
So that backhoe, the tires, if you remember the purchase of the new backhoe, it's Caterpillar correctly. They took, one of the reasons why they went with the new Caterpillar was to take the no flats off the old one and put it onto the new one, to be able to save that cost of the additional
Okay,
new no flat tires,
right,
if that makes sense.
okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't selling something with value to us.
Kind of like that V plow that we did, or
Correct.
snow plow a couple years ago. Yep.
Okay.
And remind me, when something's so like sheriff's department, does that go back into their budget or just goes general? I don't know how
The
that works.
sale of the vehicles will go back in. It's all unrecognized revenue for each department, but it is budgeted in Department 97 to offset the price that we pay for the enterprise fleet program. So if those, what's there, 5 vehicles there? If those 5 vehicles were to sell for a combined 100,000, that money gets deposited into the same department as miscellaneous revenue of sale of used vehicles to offset the price of the fleet management expenditures for the year.
And as I has visited with you, if there's some people local that want to come look at these, if, anybody's listening, they will be out at the Public Works Building, the new one, correct?
Correct. The F-550 should be up there already. I believe it was taken up there on Friday. And that's what we've done in the previous past, is all the vehicles were parked, well, it was along Old 40 and 280th. I'm not sure where they're actually going to put them up there, but if they make arrangements, they'll have numbers to call. And
Okay.
During business hours,
Sure.
we can get somebody up there to allow them to look at the vehicles or the equipment, because not all of it will be outside.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
No further comment.
I move to approve the attached list of items to be sold on Purple Wave.
Second?
There's a motion and a second on the table. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, passes 3-0. I want to go back. I was just thinking about something here. Try and get my thing to scroll. Darren, as I ask you for your county administrator report, but on these projects, 48th, 41st, and 270th, we're piggybacking off a state project. But we did get an unsolicited bid on these projects that was actually higher. So the public can hear, whoever's out there, we are still getting the best bid, even though we didn't take it to bid.
Correct, and we did get a bid just of a local contractor that was just looking at projects that the city and the county were doing throughout the year. We did receive a bid for both the 48th Street and the Vineyard projects, the 2 different projects. I wouldn't say that they are exactly bid for bid, apple to apple, because we didn't actually have specs. We used the best bid was based off the specs, the design and everything, mobilization and everything for the KDOT project for Highway 183 north of Hayes. And not necessarily knowing what asphalt type mix, materials, equipment, et cetera, that the other company did. But both bids were about 50 to 60% higher than what we did by piggybacking off of KDOT's contract with the North 183 resurface. If that kind of answers your
Yeah.
question. It
Thank you.
confirms that working off a governmental bid in this instance, and having them here, they're hauling in, I can only imagine, they have 15 miles of road to mill, and then they got to bring in the sand, the rock, the oil, the plant, all their equipment, their man hours. Being able to piggyback off that type of larger project reduces the amount of, we have to pay on material, reduces the amount on mobilization and getting everything here and in place. So it worked out very well in the city and county favor if we do proceed.
Okay. Thank you. I should have asked that during that thing. I just thought about it. So anything further on your report?
No, sir, I'm good, thank you.
Neil, any comments?
No, as far as commission reports, I did spend time with Darren and Brandon last week on that project, so, and then also I did also attend the Catholic Charity ribbon cutting through the chambers, and that's another good organization. I asked the question, how many people that the Catholic Charities reach out, and it was hard to believe, but they cover a big area in the western Kansas. So they roughly around 8,000 people a month, which means a lot. So then I did spend some time with Sarah Meitner, talking with her about the Heartland Foundation and how supportive that is just in our community for different projects that the small communities have. Then I did go to the Victoria city meeting last night, and I forgot to ask Brandon about that too, but one of their things was developing some emergency snow routes over in Victoria, and Cathedral is one of them because of the slope. So the first snowstorm, they about had some collisions on the side. So anyhow, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't have much. I did attend the Fireman's Ball this past weekend. Got to spend some time with Company 8 and Company 9 and those members. And, you know, they're volunteer companies, and they also raised a good chunk of money to give back to the community and help support their departments. So I just want to say thank you to them, and it was a great time.
Very good. I attended City of Ellis's council meeting last evening, heard some of their updates, and then I wanted to congratulate Kayla Costa, who's a part of the Ellis County District Court, was elected president of the Kansas Association of District Court Clerks and Administrators. So again, our county employees are doing good work and recognized and very involved throughout the state. So thank you and congratulations to Kayla. With that, we will adjourn our meeting at 10:43. Still got to sign stuff.